It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
And welcome to another episode of the Real Estate Podcast on iHeartRadio every morning, and also on Spotify and Apple and wherever you get your podcasts from. Well, the Monday morning has turned up once again. The weekend flew out the window, and today is the 19th day for September of 2022. How did you go across the weekend if you were transacting on property? I hope you got the right outcome. And if you're still in the middle of that process over the next few days, I hope it goes well. Now, coming up this morning, we're going to be talking about the Brisbane Olympics. It's 1 year post the decision being granted to Brisbane to stage the Olympics in 2032. And remember, this year is fast coming to a close. So at the end of this year, it's only going to be 9 years away. It's not a lot of time to build all of the infrastructure. But as you know, with infrastructure, it brings opportunities to invest into certain areas. And that's one of the talking points with Asti from PRD, who is going to be here very shortly. And we will look at all of that, break it all down for you this morning on the Real Estate Podcast.
It's your weekday real estate breakfast with news, interviews and predictions every morning on the Real Estate Podcast.
Coming up tomorrow, we are going to be talking about buying a property with your sibling. Would you do that? Would you have the courage? It could be tempting, but did you find that growing up with your sibling, you had enough of living under the same roof? Or would you be fine with it? And what sort of legal things do you have to think about when buying a property with your sibling? We'll be looking at that tomorrow morning. Hey, if you're celebrating your birthday for the 19th on this Monday, have a great day. Jeremy Irons, the English actor, he is celebrating his 73rd birthday. And Jimmy Fallon, he's on the birthday calls and turning 47. I see also on this day back in 2010, 12 years ago, nearly 13 years ago now, the oil rig Deepwater Horizon is declared sealed after a 5-month-long spill in the Gulf of Mexico. One of the biggest accidents in the oil and gas industry. The BP oil spill began when an explosion destroyed the rig and killed 11 people. That happened on this day in 2010. And then a few years later, they made a movie about that, which was called Deepwater Horizon. I'm just trying to think who was the actor in that. Mark Wahlberg, that was it.
It's your real estate podcast for breakfast. It's the Main Centre Forecast with PRD, selling smarter every day.
All right, let's have a look at your weather on this Monday morning. First, we go to Sydney. Good morning to you. Looking pretty good for the start of our working week. 23 is your forecast high, blue skies and sunshine. In Melbourne, should be mainly dry, partly cloudy with 17. In Brisbane, ditto day on yesterday, 29, blue skies and sunshine. And in Perth today, expecting some showers and your high of 17 degrees.
We talk with leading property commentators with analysis, predictions, forecasts and what's trending every morning from 6:30.
Well, 1 year has passed since the announcement of Brisbane's successful bid to host the 2032 Olympic Games, and in conjunction with the announcement, master plans and developments have been detailed in state, federal and local government budgets. The Games are set to deliver $8.1 billion in benefits to Queensland, which include $4.6 billion in tourism and $3.5 billion in social improvements such as health and community benefits. So, from a real estate perspective, what is going to be the benefit? Well, let's bring in right now Chief Economist Asti Mardiasmo from PRD. And a very good morning to you, Asti. Welcome back to the Real Estate Breakfast.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
I'm not too bad. Pretty exciting times with the Olympics, of course. And this is the question, is just what sort of a perspective is this going to have on the real estate industry? So let's start with the Olympics. And are they going to contribute positively to our housing supply?
Housing supply is such an issue right now, and we all know this because vacancy rates are down, rental market is really tight, and with the Olympics being such a big event and the government pouring in such a large amount of money, the one thing that we do want to make sure and that we're asking about is, will Olympics 2032 bring also with it a lot of housing supply after it has been held? Like, what are the plans? And also, if we have an athletes village, how is it going to be turned into something that all of Queenslanders are able to use and be able to benefit from? Are we going to have apartments? Are we going to have new housing? These are the sort of questions that us as Queenslanders and even those of us in the real estate world really want to know, because we don't want to just have an event that is going to cost us a lot of money, obviously, but we want that long-term benefits.
And Asti, the reason why we're talking about it this morning is you, along with your team there at PRD, you've released this report.
Yes, we have. So we have released a 1-year post-announcement report surrounding the 2032 Brisbane Olympics. And we look at it from two key perspectives. The first one is, what will the Olympics do when it comes to house prices or price growth in certain areas around Brisbane, so certain key suburbs, not just in Brisbane, but also in the Sunshine Coast and also in the Gold Coast. That's one side of it, because we all want to know that, right? We all want to know, okay, so if I buy now in these sort of key suburbs that the Olympics is going to be impacted by, how much am I going to be benefiting? From a real estate perspective, we want to know what is the benefit, what is the price growth, if there's any spaces for developers or for investors or buyers right now to really be looking into. That's number one. But number two, we also want to know, okay, so after the Olympics, what will be the benefit for Queenslanders? Is there going to be more housing supply so that we can all buy into it, we can all rent into it, and it provides us with a little bit more security in terms of housing?
Yeah, so important. So let's have a look at to what extent does hosting the Olympics impact with property prices?
For sure. Look, the data that we have pulled is based on a few things. The first one is what happened to house prices and property prices after the Sydney 2000 Olympics. So we looked at that from an Olympics perspective, so like an international gaming sporting event perspective. We then also looked at how Brisbane fared when Brisbane held the Expo in 1988 and also the G20 Brisbane Summit in 2014. And we looked at those events because they were worldwide, all cameras, all thoughts were onto Brisbane. We had so many international delegations, and that has that same level of international attention as the Olympics. So we've looked at what happens to house prices and property prices after Brisbane, held the Expo, after Brisbane held the G20 Summit, and also after Sydney Olympics. And on average, median house price growth grew by about 14 to 15% a year post-event. So that's quite a significant amount if we want to think about where is the Brisbane median house price right now. Brisbane City Council have gone past the $1 million mark. So if we want to try and forecast that to the next 10 years, and also knowing that on average it's an extra 15% after they've held the Olympics, that brings us to significant price growth.
Yeah, and how great is the multiplier effect in all of this? And perhaps just outline to the audience what the multiplier effect is.
The multiplier effect is that it really does bring up a lot of the suburbs that at the moment may not be known in the international eyes to such a level that it attracts a lot more international investors. There's that. And because of that, then our government, because this particular Olympics is one of a kind in the sense that federal, state, and local are actually contributing to the pot, it then has that multiplier effect of increasing or improving the infrastructure, the commercial developments in these key Olympic suburbs that may not have had this level of infrastructure or this level of commercial development happen if it wasn't because of the Olympics. So if we look at places like Hamilton in Brisbane, Tennyson, Chandler, Redland Bay, which is a little bit out of Brisbane, Ipswich, about 30-45 minutes from Brisbane, Beaudesert, which currently still has a median house price of under $500K, and then of course a few other places in Gold Coast and the Sunshine Coast. And so shining the Olympics into some of these suburbs that many people may not have heard of before draws in that infrastructure spend and that commercial spend into that area as well, and lifting those areas up.
And Asti, does hosting the Olympics add to housing supply? And I guess if it does, to what extent?
Look, when we talk about housing supply, the way that we've actually looked into this as a case study is we looked at what other Olympics have brought in terms of housing supply. So we looked at Tokyo 2021, we looked at Rio 2016, London 2012, Beijing 2008, Athens 2004, and Sydney 2000. The report actually proves that for each of those Olympics, there has been apartments or townhouses or modular homes or lots that was brought on a year after that capital city or that city has hosted an Olympic. More apartments and dwellings and lots 2 to 5 years after those places have hosted Olympics. And even in some of those places, for example, Sydney and London, 5 to 10 years after they've hosted the Olympics. For some of them, total supply to date, so basically from when they hosted the Olympics up to 2022, for example, if we just look at London, we're looking at about 4,500 apartments, Beijing, 9,400 apartments, in Sydney, 815 units, 900 townhouses, 300 modular homes. So there's been that, that real sort of case study examples where different Olympics have actually contributed to housing supply, and not just the year after it's been hosted, but also 2 to 5 years and then 10 years past.
Wow, there's a lot to take in. And where can people download your report?
If you just go to the prd.com.au in the Research Hub, the report will definitely be there. It's free for everyone, and everyone can access and have a look at, our Olympics report.
Fantastic. Asti, you have yourself a wonderful Monday, and thanks again for sharing some of the latest details there from PRD.
Thank you so much, Craig.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.